Sending good vibes to you and anyone else who might end up hearing this. Here's a sillier one for you. Years ago, a friend group of mine had a D&D campaign where we played as agents that protected the secrets of magic in the real world, keeping non-human citizens safe from discovery and investigating magical threats. I don't remember the specifics of this particular mission, but I was playing a light domain cleric and we were going after a group of vampires with the goal of apprehending and interrogating one. We got into combat with the vampires, and after a few rounds of trading blows, I came to this brilliant conclusion that this would be a good time to use my channel divinity feature, Radiance of the Dawn. I do so, and the DM pauses. So this is sunlight, which vampires are weak to. This is going to do double damage to them, even if they pass the Constitution save.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
Yes, I exclaim, feeling victorious. You want the secrets of Castle Volkihar? I will never tell you anything, fool. Do you not know the power I wield? Behold, the power of the sun. Wait. Oh, okay. Hold on. In the palm of my hand. Shit. Anyone have speak with Dad? Yep, well, you've done enough damage to them throughout the rest of this fight, so the group of vampires that you were supposed to interrogate all shrivel to dust in the dawn's radiant light. Oh. We all lost our minds laughing. The Dungeon Master and the rest of the table rolled with it like champs. I had a great time playing the aftermath of my stuffy, intellectual, by-the-book cleric struggling to save face after a grievous lapse in judgment. But it was juxtaposed with the dark humor that came with the situation. It's been years since that session, but we still reference it to this day. It makes me really happy that despite completely botching our objective, everyone gets joy from my little snafu. And hey, a lesser guy would get all upset, all angry, oh, I didn't mean to do that. But hey, part of these games is messing up. Part of these games is having that laugh with your friends, even when you botch things up just that little bit. So this story starts pre-pandemic in my last year of college. I was into Dungeons & Dragons and looking to play some more. I had one online game that was fairly stable, but my other online group was just they just kind of stopped. And my in-person group had finally ended after devolving into a train wreck, which was its own can of worms for a whole other day. I was, and still am, in a very big LGBTQ+ actual play fan server, and one day someone posted that they were looking for a new game, and in the time frame they gave, it worked for me. I messaged the Dungeon Master, said I was interested, and he was super enthusiastic. He gave me some info about the world and set out some basic rules for character creation while he went up to set up the server for the game. I had my heart set on playing a monk. I don't have any particular attachment to monks, but I found some of the subclasses to be pretty neat, and sometimes you just want to go fast and punch things. Gotta go fast. Gotta go fast. I got to the server, briefly met the other players. Most of them were asleep due to them being in Europe and me being in the US, but I was really excited. I worked on some backstory for my character with the Dungeon Master and even got an art piece commissioned of her. She was a gnome sun soul monk, and I was super excited. Unfortunately, time passed and the game just never happened. Scheduling conflicts kept cropping up and the session 0 just never materialized. Unfortunate, but I was sympathetic, as that's how it goes sometimes, bro, based on some of the way you guys talk. That's how it goes, like, literally every time. Scheduling conflicts! A week later, another person on the server said they were looking to start a game, and I messaged them wanting to join. I was still set on playing Monk. The Dungeon Master already had a server for me to join, and everyone was really nice. I was super excited to play and fell asleep, excited to chat more with the people I would be playing with. The next morning, barely a day after joining the server, I wake up and check the Discord notifications on my phone, noticing a strange one. It was a message from the Dungeon Master in the new server just saying, "Fine." I was confused, so I went to click on the message to see what was happening, and there was nothing. They had overnight deleted the server and blocked everyone.
What the hell happened here?
They had left the larger server too, so I never really figured out what the hell happened there. At this point, I was starting to think that me wanting to play a monk might be cursed. So when I finally did join a new game a month later, I played a ranger instead. That game ended up being its own dumpster fire, so that's for another time. So anyway, fast forward to 2022, a bunch of people from the fan server ended up making a one-shot, and one of the one-shots ended up being one of those ones where everyone's playing the same class, but with different subspecs. An all-monks one-shot setup, themed around Power Rangers. Unfortunately, I was literally at work at the time, so all the spots for that game filled up before I could join, which I was okay with. Yeah, I'm sure you were doing perfectly okay. 3 months before the one-shot is set to go off, I get a message from the Dungeon Master of the All Monks game asking if I want to join, since one of the players had to miss due to scheduling conflicts. I agreed, both because I wanted to play more D&D and because I might finally be able to break this curse. I made a cute little changeling Sun Soul monk named Xanthi, who was the Yellow Ranger and ended up being the leader due to having the highest charisma. I'd want to be the Yellow Ranger too. That one-shot was super fun, full of silly music puns and creating combo moves together. It was a blast, and I was super happy I finally got to play a monk, and playing Xanthi kickstarted my love for playing changelings. Anyway, that's my story for now. Apologies for the length. Have a lovely day. Yeah, what can I say, man? Scheduling conflicts are a pain in the bum. People are busy. A big reason why I sometimes minimize the amount of people in my group is just so I can maximize the amount of time I can play. Less people means less conflicts. But even that doesn't work all the time. Look, there are plenty of things that you can do to minimize scheduling conflicts. Less people, shorter campaigns, one-shots, blah, 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 blah. But I understand it does suck to compromise that sometimes. However, I'd argue that it's enough to get together for your friends, even if it's not for a multi-year long saga. I mean, we don't always need to do that. Sometimes just enough to do a little Power Rangers one-shot with the buddies. It's more than enough for me. I've been playing with the base D&D classes for years, and I'm just about sick of doing the same gameplay over and over again. Even in homebrew, it's always the same stuff. I wish someone would create something actually new. Well, thank God for Humblewood Beyond the Canopy. This video is sponsored by Hit Point Press and their new Kickstarter, Humblewood Beyond the Canopy. This standalone adventure is set for both 5th edition 2024 and 5th edition 2014. It's got 250 plus pages of gorgeous artwork and incredible content. Beyond the brand new Gadgeteer class and the entire level 5 to 8 adventure, this book has so much extra content, including 40 plus new monsters. You guys know how much I love a challenging encounter, and these varied, fascinating monsters add so much to both the Humblewood setting and to the challenge of your combats. Don't worry though, with the brand new spells and brand new subclasses your players will have access to, I'm sure they're going to be ready to meet the challenge. If you guys are interested, head down to the description down below or to the pinned comment where you will find the Kickstarter for the latest Humblewood adventure. Thank you so much to Hit Point Press and Humblewood for sponsoring today's episode. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. And without further ado, I'm going to turn back into an animated rat so that we can get back to the video. Hey Crispy, longtime fan of the channel since the Skyrim backgrounds, and I'm a first-time writer. Dang. That takes me back. Anyway, I am more or less a forever dungeon master for Dungeons & Dragons and decided to try to get into a game. I found one that was a perfect time slot since I was a night shift worker, and this game would be in the morning when I get off work. I don't remember the concept of the campaign too well, as I didn't get really invested past session 0. When I talked to the dungeon master about any limitations when it came to creating a character, they said, be as creative as you want, as long as they are part of the government. So the first concept I hit them with was this College of Eloquence bard that was inspired by Mimir and Saul Goodman. Mimir and Saul Goodman? That's a combination of characters. Though, to be fair, they could be super similar. I wouldn't know. I've never actually watched Breaking Bad. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. It's not like
me being uncultured is new information.
Anyway, my idea for Mimir and Saul Goodman combo got shut down because I described myself as a guy who kind of knows everybody, but nobody really wants anything to do with them. They just didn't think that sort of concept would fit well into the story. Next one, I'll admit I went off the rails. I was inspired by Rip Van Winkle. I created this young noble who was a local hero and celebrity of his town that disappeared for decades and can't remember anything due to the time period when he was missing. When he comes back to see his town is completely gone, he's trying to catch up and learn what happened in the world. This got turned down too, and I kind of expected it to. I really like that idea. I think that's cool. I'm stealing it. Third idea was me playing a detective that was trying to figure out how to get his kid back from his Fae ex-wife. It was a play on the whole Fae taking your firstborn joke that got rejected because the Fae just don't exist in the setting, apparently, which I pointed out should fall into the list of limitations that I should be aware of. Last idea, and this literally made me hysterically laugh and scream at the response that I got. I decided to go with a Drake Warden Ranger. I explained the Drake was going to be my son's pet from before said son was killed. I was absolutely in love with this idea, playing a grizzled old man looking for his son's killer. The DM said, "Ooh, I love the concept. However, it may have to wait because dragons don't exist in my world yet." I was rioting in my room from the gaslighting.
Hey, DM, before we get, really into character creation, I wanted to ask if there were any, stipulations on your homebrew, any character creation restrictions? No, not really anything big. I mean, this is a very prototypical D&D game, so whatever you're used to in your normal D&D sessions, probably okay here. Oh, great. Well, I was thinking of playing a character whose village got burned down by a dragon. Oh, there's no dragons in this world. There's no dragons in the Dungeons and Dragons game? Yeah, it's actually a fascinating part of the evolutionary history of my world's lore and the deep I don't care. I know it hurts. Trust me, I'm a dungeon master too, I get it. But until you, as a DM, give me, the player, a reason to care about the lore, I don't really want to hear it. But I mean, hey, I'm sure it's really cool. I'm sure your world building is awesome, and I want to give it a chance, so fine. No dragons. Is there anything else? No, not really. That's the big thing. Okay, well, at the very least, I'm pretty sure I can play a human, right? Oh, those aren't in this world either. Are you kidding me?
I didn't respond for a whole day before just writing basically an exit letter. I explained that after 2 weeks of just getting characters rejected, I just had too many negative emotions for this campaign. There was no hard feelings, I just wanted to go my own way. While not the most dramatic outcome, I still think about this wondering if I was being too extra with my character ideas, even though I was told there were limits. A polite way to ask, am I the asshole? Anyway, thanks for reading. You guys know I have my own extensive list of character limitations, so drum roll please. Not the a-hole! Obviously. Look, I have my own list of character limitations. I play in a homebrew world with a lot of differences from D&D. Guess what though? I just tell the players what they can do, and then just leave them to it. I have never had to reject a character for not fitting into the setting, and I'm sure it might happen, at some point. But if your setting is this ridiculously inflexible, I don't know, man. Consider maybe using a different setting, or at the very least, explaining your setting better. Not having basic stuff like dragons in your D&D game could be cool. Maybe your game is about the origin of dragons. But again, you need to tell the players that. Unless the players are told something, it may as well not exist for them. But don't be discouraged, man, because every single character idea I heard in the story, it was freaking awesome. I'm going to preface this with the following statement. While a lot of this is obvious in hindsight, most of the games with these players were fun. Yeah, that's how it starts.
That's how it always starts. But then later there's running and screaming.
This is about a group that formed 5 years ago from a Looking for Group post. The main members who have been part of this throughout the story are me, admittedly a bit of a people pleaser and a pushover. Castor, a very passive player, there's not much to say about him. Cadmus, our problem player. He was a writer and an active role player. However, in hindsight, he was incredibly dominating when it comes to roleplay. I likely didn't realize this at the time due to most of the other players seemingly being content at largely being silent and only really interacting with combat. One of the main draws of the group for me was that most of the players were very open to trying out a wide variety of TTRPG systems outside of D&D. Over the course of its life, we tried out Cock, Mutants and Masterminds, City of Mist, Pathfinder 1st Edition and 2nd Edition, Through the Breach, my personal favorite, and even more. The first incident happened with Mutants and Masterminds. The main setting of this campaign was the last city on Earth, as a mysterious virus turned people into monsters, with a small minority of people gaining superpowers instead. Cadmus's character at first seemed fine, becoming a doctor with healing abilities. However, the problem came from the fact that he had actually put most of his points into his secret base, a system in Mutants and Masterminds that's surprisingly cheap for what it offers, basically improving this base until it was the entire self-sufficient city, kind of invalidating the whole last city on Earth plotline. Oh, well, Destiny did that too, and I still haven't forgiven them for it! He would also steal away NPCs and send them to this other city, functionally deleting them from our story. The second most recent incident I feel like was in the Through the Breach campaign. Through the Breach is an RPG set in the world of the war game Malifaux. I could have pronounced it without your help. I would have figured it out, okay? It's a Western, set in an alternate universe during a sort of gold rush where everyone's racing to collect soul-stealing gemstones called soul stones, awakening ancient deities in the process, all in the name of profit. It's a dark fantasy setting with a lot of horror elements where there's no real good guys. I told the players this multiple times, but Cadmus insisted on playing a heroic character, even going so far as to try and homebrew a prestige class called the Saint. By the end, this character ended up pissing off every in-universe faction with his insistence on always doing the right thing. I eventually called off the game due to being unable to figure out how to untangle the mess this made, due to the party not being aligned with anyone like the game kind of expects you to be. The final straw happened fairly recently as a new player had joined the group. I'll call them just the Dungeon Master. We recruited them after the Through the Breach game fell apart for a short-lived game that died due to me being burnt out from life stuff. This DM stepped in, took over in my stead, and organized my campaign based on a fairy tale setting. Seizing the opportunity, I decided, hey, I'd play a fairy tale princess named Lenora, on the run from her evil stepmother and an arranged marriage. Cadmus decided to play a drunk and disorderly, disgraced knight. Same as before, he dominated conversations, basically filling any kind of silence left by the other players and giving no opportunities to really respond. Outside of this, his character was really just an uncomfortable drunken mess. At one point, even declaring himself to be best friends with Dionysus. We later found out that he had made that up just on the spot and just accepted the DM to roll with it. We were level 3. Okay, based on Hades 2, Dionysus and his Bulge are best friends with everybody, so not unbelievable. Outside of those things, the final nails in Cadmus's coffin were two really uncomfortable incidents. The first incident involved my character. Long story short, we had gotten into a discussion about whether or not there were fae in the area. My character Lenora had pointed out that we passed by a unicorn earlier that day, to which Cadmus pointed to my character before responding, yeah, but they're also attracted to virgins, aren't they? I was made quite uncomfortable by this comment, but he just kept pushing it, at one point even declaring, we can't all be pretty and virginal forever.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
After Lenora responded with a scientific argument around true love and curses. The next incident took place in the free roleplay chat. He wrote a short story about his player character going into town and beating up some thugs completely on his own. First was because he was trying to have this scene all to himself, where none of the other player characters or even the Dungeon Master were involved.
Peak fiction. It's almost complete. Hey, Crispy number 5, what are you doing? I'm writing a short story for our campaign. Oh, awesome. What's it about? Well, it's about how my character defeated 1,000 evil bandits and smote their ruin upon the village cobblestones all by himself without the help of his weakling party. And also about how my character got a hot trad wife who he had sex with every single...
Secondly, because in this short story, it was heavily implied these thugs were about to assault a woman in an alleyway, a far cry in tone from the Kingdom Hearts-esque save the fairy tale kingdoms from darkness vibe we have been going for prior. Ultimately, after only 2 sessions, the Discord chat devolved into arguing and broke apart. It had even come out in his argument that his backstory for this level 3 character was that he was one of the knights who had personally placed the king on his throne. Like I said, hindsight is 2020. The weird sexual topics hadn't really come up prior to the final campaign, so I'm not sure what, if anything, changed. He had DM'd prior too. These games went fine. The story was largely just him throwing together random stuff he thought was cool at the moment, but his games were still fun. But maybe the warning signs were there all along, who knows. I likely didn't help by simply allowing most of the stuff to happen. Now that I've written all this out, it seems clear to me that he always seemed to need to somehow subvert from what everyone else was doing. Sorry if this was just too long. Not too long at all. There are definitely times where this guy's actions are not wholly bad. Like, for example, in a campaign where there's only one city left, having the long-term goal of building up another city, that's a cool idea. But it looks like this guy used some mutants and mastermind systems to basically subvert the entire setting early on in the game. That's not a long-term goal, it just makes things seem cheap. And yeah, it's rules as written, but I don't know, as a dungeon master, I wouldn't be comfortable with it. I will point out, though, that the DM didn't stop him, which is a big thing here. If you want this kind of behavior to stop, you do need to stop it. Like, playing a heroic character isn't inherently bad or anything. I like playing heroic characters even in dark settings, but if it doesn't fit the tone or the rest of the party, that is an issue. Of course, getting into an argument about a character's virginity is just strange. I got nothing for that one. All this stuff, it's small, but it builds up, and overall, I think that argument, that final push, it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. This guy was just too irritating for too long. Okay, so some background. I joined this campaign as part of my school's D&D club pretty early in high school. I really wanted a fun story I could get invested in playing. I know I shouldn't have expected things that serious from a club, but I had high hopes. So in general, this campaign was kind of a disaster. The Dungeon Master, while he was really nice, and I think really wanted to tell a story with the players, had a bad habit of not just saying no when players asked to do something unreasonable. Because of that, most games got completely derailed by weird stuff the party members did that just had to be retconned the next week. Stuff like contacting the gods just to talk to them during long rests when religion hadn't even come up in the story, stealing from or killing NPCs just because they could, trying to seduce every NPC we don't kill, and killing other people for no apparent reason. And oh my god, think about this. They're doing all these really stupid, terrible things, and then just resetting the clock immediately afterwards. It's save scumming in a D&D game! One incident, though, takes the cake for the one that left me the most turned off from school D&D, and this group in particular. This story involves mainly our Dungeon Master and our Changeling. So our Dungeon Master was having us face a boss that was kind of themed around Hades. He had a bunch of death-based powers, and importantly for the story, could summon a 3-headed dog, who we all called Cerberus. While we were fighting Hades, Changeling, with her high charisma, asked to seduce him. The Dungeon Master, I think planning on making the roll nearly impossible with consequences for failure, allowed the roll. Guess who rolled a natural 20?
Ha! You fool! You want to seduce the dragon? Fine. I'll make the DC nearly impossible! You should think better of questioning your Dungeon Master and daring to seduce my big bad evil guy. Now you will flounder before the entire... Dude, I got an actual 20! Stop, that's not... Oh my god, yes! So I make out... Someone stop this. Why? How did that even... What?
Since the Dungeon Master didn't want to completely ruin this combat and villain, he had Hades bring in Cerberus for the Changeling. I think he thought that would be better, but honestly, it still keeps me up at night. What followed was Changeling going into excruciating detail about how she had relations with Cerberus, even describing how she shapeshifted to accommodate his 3 heads, and oh my god, I'm going to die. Yeah, that lasted for the rest of the session. Needless to say, my little 8th grade self was not comfortable with any of that. Wow, 8th grade. I don't think we've ever had them that young.
Wait.
No. But I was completely ignored whenever I asked if we could go back to the story and stop talking about one of our party members banging a giant dog. I eventually just came up with an excuse for why I couldn't come to the session the next day. We had D&D, and told them I wouldn't be able to make it to any of the later sessions either. Yeah, bowing out of this is a real good move on your part. My god. Look, I think DMs who say no all the time, like petulant children, are pretty bad. But a DM who refuses to stop a problem player from doing creepy, weird shit, that is a whole other level. Look, I understand that some people want a more NSFW game, but you need to understand that not everyone else is going to want that. You need to find a group that will cater to that game. It's especially ridiculous because this is a game at a school with a bunch of kids. I mean, this writer was in 8th grade, and that's still a problem. Like, I don't think we can just excuse the sort of behavior as, oh, kids being kids. Like, no, if we don't correct this, it persists into adulthood. People don't just mature as some natural part of themselves. You have to cause maturity the vast majority of the time. Kids have to learn. This sort of thing is not okay. Hey, that's a wrap. This week, I'm going to be taking a break on Friday because I'm moving office, so expect me to slow down things while I'm working on that. But in any case, if you guys enjoyed, you might enjoy our last episode of Critical Failure, where we covered Artisan dice and their many screw-ups. It's linked up in the cards, but before you go, please do leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, put down comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. That's a dog. To let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email down in the description down below. Send your stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.